Now, the autistic may only, especially under times of stress, the ability to connect to the language part of the brain is impaired because it's in the emotional part of the brain. And when I'm feeling emotional, I can't connect to words.
Hi, my name is Staci Neustadt. I'm the CEO at Making Sense of Autism, and Susan Golubock is our founder and an autistic retired occupational therapist who shares her insight on how the autistic brain works. And as an occupational therapist, she is full of knowledge on sensory regulation and also on helping us understand what we observe as autistic behaviors, but what we now know is just a big misunderstanding of how we're viewing our clients, our students, as missing the communication that they're trying to share with us. So, Sue, today I'm excited to talk about what if the autistic behaviors are not what people think they are. And I'm saying behaviors with quotes because we kind of want to shift away from that word. How would autistics prefer that we describe instead of behaviors? What should we call them? And how are we misunderstanding them?
I would call it nonverbal communication, which
Yeah.
is what everyone does. 93% of communication, according to the experts, is nonverbal. Tone of voice being a small fraction, but most of it body language. And what is behavior other than body language? It is your body doing something, but unfortunately, if it's not what a person expects, it's not what they're looking for, it's not socially appropriate, it's judged to be a behavior that needs to be corrected, i.e., we ignore the communication that's being communicated. Obviously, the child's upset or confused, or they're running away and to escape. We see that behavior, but we're not paying attention to the communication part because we don't like that behavior. It's not appropriate. It's not what the way we want them to communicate that message. So we think, first of all, correct the behavior, and then maybe if we remember that it was a behavior, a communication, we may say, here's a better way to communicate to me what you want to say, which is the first thing we should do is, I see what you did. Um, I think this is what you're trying to communicate to me. Um, am I right? And once you've confirmed that, yes, that's what they were trying to communicate to you, that I'm running away because I can't stand it, this is overwhelming to me, then, okay, let's deal with it. And then, of course, later you say, okay, here's might be a better way when you're feeling overwhelmed, but give them an alternative way to communicate. I.e., if you're sitting in the classroom and everybody is making noise and moving around and it's just overwhelming, yes, you want to escape. I understand that. But I can't be chasing you out of the classroom and leaving the other kids alone. So if you're overwhelmed, would you simply raise this little piece of paper, yellow piece of paper, post-it note, whatever you put on there that's not too conspicuous, to warn me that you're overwhelmed so that I can deal with it so you don't have to leave the room? Do you see how you can problem solve and figure out, here's another way, i.e., when I see that little piece of paper go up in the air, I know you're in trouble and I need to get to you ASAP. How much more of a powerful message can you be giving them than that? But to say, no, you're going to the principal's office because you're not allowed to leave the classroom. Well, what is that teaching them? It's not
Yes.
dealing with the underlying, what that action on their part was communicating.
And I like how you brought that up because you're right. I think what happens is first they want to correct the behavior through consequence, which that's not going to fix the behavior. Or they think that if you reward good behavior, that's going to fix negative
Mhm.
behavior. But think about it. Does it really work? Maybe if the child finally breaks down, but that's mentally not healthy for them. But what you're saying is identify what you're observing with, oh, I see you're trying to run. Oh, I see you're covering your ears. I see whatever it is that they're doing. And I love your suggestions of, giving them an alternative way to kind of indicate I am upset, or maybe it's simple covering their ears that does still work, that gesture. And I've done this with students, whether it's on their desk or it's a gesture that they do. And now I would say with my kiddos with higher support needs, this is a strategy I kind of have to implement a lot. And we need everyone on board identifying this is what you're observing, and talking with them. And I know you and I have talked about creating almost like a visual of like, what are you trying to tell me? And making it more of a visual. Are you trying to tell me this is too hard, it's too loud, and kind of making a list? And you've always said when we get it right,
Mhm.
they're gonna acknowledge that. And so instead of the consequences, instead of trying to correct the behavior, we need to just stop for a minute, which I know is hard because we're all in a rush and we all have things to do, but stop in that moment to problem solve, figure it out
Yeah.
what they are trying to express. Now, this is where your knowledge helps because as non-autistics, we might make the wrong assumptions. So for we see a kid elope, we might think, oh, it's too loud, it's whatever, but we could be completely wrong. So what are some other reasons that we might see escape or things like that, or refusal?
Well, escape is not always, well, the word escape implies that you're running away from something. But what if a child has a need and that need is immediate, i.e., I need to get to a restroom ASAP? Now I'm running towards something, not away from something. So the assumption is running. We make these subconscious assumptions all the time.
Yeah.
And if we don't have at that moment the time to stop and problem solve, because we're in the middle of something else, we've got other kids to attend to, etc. What you do is set aside time. I see the problem. You are telling me something, I'm not sure what it is, but I recognize there's a problem. I can't deal with it right now. I'm going to give you a break time, i.e., to hopefully meet your need, whatever it is you need at this time. And we're going to get back to it at, you set a time, let's say in 5 minutes, during recess time when it's coming up. Meanwhile, what do you need from me to help you self-regulate, to get back on track, to meet your need, whatever it is? Can you show me what you need? And maybe if we can do it quickly, I can meet that need. Otherwise, can you wait? And here's what I'd like you to do while you wait. Waiting is very hard for autistics too, because we don't have a good concept of time. So
Yeah.
that's where a visual timer might be put out for them to understand what wait means. And okay, when the timer gets to red, then that's when I'll be available to help you problem solve and meet your need, unless it's immediate. So you'd have to ask them the question, is it something you need right now? It can't wait, or can it wait? If it can wait, let's set the timer until I'm ready. I mean, those are reasonable things that uh, parents would communicate to their children.
Yeah.
Um, but they assume their children are verbal and can answer them in verbal ways. Now, the autistic may only, especially under times of stress, the ability to connect to the language part of the brain is impaired because it's in the emotional part of the brain. And when I'm
Mhm.
feeling emotional, I can't connect to words. And my greatest example is I was having a wonderful lunch with my husband. It was a gorgeous sunny day, and I wanted to express how much I felt in love with the moment. I mean, this was one, I wanted to say it. As soon as I shifted from feeling it to the language part of the brain, I lost the feeling.
Mm.
And so I never said anything because I couldn't talk about because I no longer felt it. I can't be in two areas of the brain at the same time. And if people don't understand that, they they're going to misunderstand and expect from an autistic what they're not capable of doing. So if they're in the emotional part of the brain and you can see they're emotional, don't ask them to produce language.
Yeah. Don't
A
say
simple
use your
yes
words.
or no will be fine. Ask yes or no questions or things they can gesture, anything, but don't ask them for words.
Yeah. So powerful because it's like if we implement these, really, they're simple strategies, but they're hard because our brains don't think that way. Our brains think you're being naughty, here's the consequence.
Mm-hmm.
But then think about what happens next. You give a consequence, the child escalates even more, maybe disrupts the whole classroom, maybe harms themselves. Then you end up in a not good situation, whether it's seclusion restraint, which absolutely should not happen.
Mm-mm.
If you implement this strategy that literally does not take a long time, not only are you teaching these amazing skills of self-advocacy, you're teaching problem solving, you are teaching language, whether it is nonverbal language of advocating, like stop. And if they can advocate that and you respect that, you're no longer going to get an escalation. They're telling you stop for a reason. Maybe they're not understanding what you're teaching. Maybe they need a sensory break. Maybe, who knows what happened. Maybe they have to go to the bathroom. But when you do respect that communication and acknowledge it, that connection is huge. And I've seen it with my clients and students who can express to me like, wow, you get me. And it's so amazing and it's such a great feeling. So super easy, yeah, very mind shifting strategies that you could literally implement today, and it will build a greater connection and it will reduce the behaviors that you see. It will, because you're empowering communication. So awesome. Thank you, Sue. Great ideas.
Hey, thank you for asking, Stacy.